My wife cheated on me for 1 year with my friend. My kids abandoned me and chose her rich lover. But 8 years later, they came crawling back for $50K when they found out I'm a millionaire. What I did left them speechless. I'm 58 years old. I own a pretty successful sports training facility, and 8 years ago, my wife destroyed my life with a year-long affair with a supposed college friend. But that's not even the worst part. I mean, yeah, it was horrible to discover it, but what really broke me was that my two kids, already adults at that point, decided to take their mother's side and basically erased me from their lives for 8 full years. Now, suddenly, they want back in my life. And the reason they want to do it is so obvious it actually hurts. I guess I should start from the beginning so this whole mess makes sense. I was a high school baseball coach. Nothing glamorous, but I loved my job. I'd been doing it for like 25 years when all this happened. Marie, my ex-wife, was 52 at the time, worked in administration at an insurance company, and I thought we had a solid marriage, one of those that lasts a lifetime. Jordan, our oldest son, was like 26 and had just gotten married, and Melissa, our daughter, was 24 and engaged. It seemed like everything was going well, that we'd done a good job as parents, and that our family was, I don't know, normal and happy. Looking back, I should have seen it coming, but when you're inside the situation, you don't see the signs, or maybe you don't want to see them. I discovered the affair in the stupidest way possible. Marie left her phone on the kitchen table one afternoon. A message came through and I was right there, and the screen lit up with a message from someone named Edward that said something like, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. I love you." Edward. That name sounded familiar, but I couldn't place where from. I grabbed the phone. I know, I invaded her privacy, but when you see something like that, you can't just ignore it. And I started reading the messages. There were hundreds, literally hundreds of messages between them. Photos, I'm not going to describe. Plans to meet up. Conversations about how I was an obstacle in their relationship. Turned out Edward was a guy Marie had gone to college with. They'd reconnected at an alumni reunion a year earlier, and since then they'd been seeing each other behind my back. A whole year. 12 months of lies, of excuses about working late, of supposed girls' nights out, of me being the idiot who made dinner and asked how her day had been. When Marie got home that night, I confronted her. I didn't yell, didn't break anything, just showed her phone and asked what the hell was going on. She didn't even try to deny it, just started crying and told me she'd fallen in love with Edward, that she was so sorry but she couldn't keep lying, that she wanted a divorce. Just like that. 26 years of marriage ended in a 20-minute conversation in our kitchen. I stood there not knowing what to say, feeling like the floor was opening up beneath my feet. I asked if the kids knew anything. She said no, and I said we should tell them together because it was the right thing to do. I'll never forget that night, the feeling of unreality about everything, like I was watching my life from the outside. The next morning, we sat down with Jordan and Melissa and told them. Well, Marie told them, I could barely speak. I expected them to get angry at their mother, to support me, to understand what she had done, but the reaction they had left me completely frozen. Jordan, my son who had always been so sensible, looked at me and said these things happen, that Mom and I clearly weren't happy together anymore, that we should handle it like adults. Melissa took her mother's side immediately, saying that surely I had done something to push Marie into another man's arms, that marriages don't break up just because. I couldn't believe it, literally couldn't process what I was hearing. I explained to them that their mother had had an affair for a year, that she'd lied to me every single day, that I hadn't done anything wrong, but they kept acting like this was some kind of mutual and friendly separation. I hired a lawyer the next day and filed for divorce. I wasn't going to fight for custody of anything because the kids were already adults, but I did want to make sure everything was divided fairly. Marie tried to keep the house, most of our savings, basically wanted me to leave with nothing while she started her happy new life with Edward. My lawyer said that wasn't going to happen, that we had a solid case for an equitable division and we prepared to fight. That's when things got really ugly with my kids. Jordan called me one day, like 2 weeks after we filed the divorce papers, and told me to please go easy on Mom, that she was already suffering enough, not to put her through a difficult divorce process. I told him your mother had an affair, that she caused this, that I'm not going to let her keep everything just because she feels bad. He got angry, told me I was being vindictive and cruel, and that if I kept going down that path, I was going to lose. My kids, too. I didn't think he was serious. I thought he was angry and it would pass. But when the divorce got more contentious, when my lawyer started asking for financial documents and questioning certain things about Marie's assets, Jordan and Melissa stopped answering my calls. They stopped responding to my messages. When I tried to visit them, they said they were busy. The last conversation I had with Jordan, before they cut me off completely, was when I told him I wasn't going to give in on the divorce, that his mother didn't deserve any favors from me, and he responded to me word for word, "Then don't count on me as your son," and hung up. Melissa sent me a message a few days later saying basically the same thing, that if I couldn't be reasonable with Mom, then she didn't want to have a relationship with me. Just like that. They made me choose between them or their mother, and they chose her. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. We ended up dividing everything more or less, equitably. Though Marie kept the house because I honestly didn't want to be there anymore. Every corner reminded me of the life I'd lost. I moved to a small apartment, went back to work as a coach, though I didn't have the same enthusiasm anymore, and basically dedicated myself to existing for a while. Jordan and Melissa didn't come to my new place, didn't call to see how I was doing. Nothing. I tried to contact them a few times, but eventually got tired of being ignored. If they wanted to cut me out of their lives, let them. I wasn't going to beg them to love me. 2 months after the divorce, I found out from a cousin that Marie had married Edward. 2 months. She didn't even wait a decent amount of time, just went straight into her lover's arms and married him in a small ceremony. What really hurt me was finding out later that Jordan and Melissa had been there, that they'd attended the wedding, that they'd celebrated with their mother while I was still the villain in this story. That was the last time I tried to contact them. I sent a message saying that if they could attend their mother's wedding to the man she cheated on me with, but couldn't answer a call from me, then they'd clearly made their choice. They never responded. The years that followed were, I'm not going to lie, pretty lonely. I worked, hung out with some friends, tried dating women, but it didn't work out much because I was still processing everything. I found out from relatives that Jordan and Melissa had started working at Edward's furniture company, that apparently he had a furniture manufacturing business or something like that. Typical, right? His kids working for the man who cuckolded me. 6 years ago, Jordan got married. I wasn't invited, obviously. They didn't even send me an announcement. I found out on Facebook when I started seeing wedding photos. 4 years ago, Melissa did the same thing, got married, and I didn't exist on that day for her either. What hurt most about those weddings wasn't not being invited, but realizing that my children had made huge decisions in their lives and I wasn't part of them at all. Like the last 30 years of raising them hadn't meant anything. But anyway, life goes on, I guess. Like 3 years ago, 2 of my friends from the gym where I worked out, both former professional athletes, proposed opening a sports training center together. They had the contacts and experience in high-level sports. I had experience training young people and technical knowledge of baseball and other sports. It sounded risky. I was already over 50 and was thinking more about how to get to retirement than starting a business. But something in me said, why not? That I'd already lost everything that mattered to me. So why not try something new? We put in our savings, got a loan, and opened the center. The first months were tough. I'm not going to romanticize it. We barely had any clients, and we were worried we'd made a huge mistake. But then we started getting known. Parents started bringing their kids to train with us. Some college athletes started coming during vacations, and little by little the thing took off. By last year, we were pretty successful. We had a waiting list for certain classes, we'd hired more coaches, and we were making plans to open a second location. I didn't become a millionaire or anything like that, but I was making more money than I ever made as a high school coach. And more important than that, I felt fulfilled again. I had a purpose. My partners became my best friends. The center felt like my family. And when I think about that time, I realize it was the first time in years that I really felt happy, or at least at peace with my life. I didn't think about Marie. I barely thought about my kids. I just focused on building something I could be proud of. Then, earlier this year, I got a message from Jordan. 8 years without talking, 8 years of absolute silence. And suddenly a message saying, "Hi, Dad. It's been a long time. Since we talked, I'd like to see you if you're available." My first reaction was emotional. I'm not going to deny it. Part of me wanted to respond immediately and say, "Yes, sure, whenever you want." But something stopped me. 8 years is a long time, and the way they cut me off was so cold that I couldn't just pretend everything was fine. I responded asking what made him contact me after so long, and he said he'd been thinking a lot about our relationship and wanted to repair things, that he had 2 kids now and wanted them to meet their grandfather. He sent me photos of them, a 5-year-old boy and a 1-year-old baby. And yeah, something in me softened seeing them, but I was still suspicious. Too convenient that he suddenly wanted to reconnect. A week after that first message, he showed up at my house. He didn't give notice he was coming, just knocked on the door on a Saturday morning. I saw him through the peephole and almost didn't recognize him. He looked older, with some gray hair, but it was definitely my son. I opened the door and we stood there staring at each other for a few seconds without saying anything. He spoke first, apologized for showing up unannounced, said he needed to talk to me in person. I let him in, and we sat in the living room, and it was awkward, like super awkward. Neither of us knew what to say at first. Finally, he started talking about how he'd been wrong to cut me off, that he understood I was hurt by what Mom did, that he'd been unfair. He sounded sincere, but something in his body language told me there was something else. I asked him directly, "What do you want, Jordan?" And there it came out. He said he wanted us to spend time together, for me to meet my grandkids. And by the way, if I could help them financially, because things were difficult. There it was. The real reason. He wasn't coming because he really wanted to repair our relationship. He was coming because he needed money. I asked him what happened with his job at Edward's company, and he got uncomfortable. Said things weren't going well at the company, that they were thinking about changes. He didn't give me specific details, but it was clear there were problems. I told him I needed time to think about all this, that 8 years don't get erased with one conversation, and that if he really wanted to have a relationship with me, it had to be genuine, not based on my money. He left a bit upset. I think he expected me to say yes immediately. 2 days later, Melissa also contacted me. Same pattern. Message saying she missed me, that she wanted us to meet her 6-month-old daughter, that we should be a family again. When I responded asking why now. She also mentioned that things were difficult economically and that she hoped we could support each other as family. I mean, neither of them even tried to hide that they wanted money. They just wrapped it in nice words about family and reconciliation. I felt used, betrayed again, like what they'd already done to me wasn't enough. I blocked them both that same day. I wasn't going to let them come into my life only when they needed me. But I'm curious by nature. I always have been. So I started investigating a little. I called some cousins, an aunt who always stayed in touch with me, and asked them what they knew about Jordan and Melissa's situation. Turns out Edward's furniture company was in serious financial trouble, had been losing money for years, and now Edward was trying to sell it before it went completely bankrupt. Jordan and Melissa worked there, probably earning decent salaries all this time, and suddenly found themselves without jobs or about to be. And that's when everything clicked. They didn't look for me because they missed me. They looked for me because their source of money was disappearing, and they knew my business was doing well. Probably Marie told them, or someone else, and they decided that Dad could be useful after all. About a month after I blocked them, they showed up at my house again, both together this time. They knocked insistently on the door. I was inside but didn't open. Jordan yelled that he knew I was there, to please open, that they needed to talk. I yelled back through the door for them to leave, that I'd already made clear I didn't want to see them. Melissa started crying, saying they just wanted a chance, that they were his children and they needed me. I lost my patience and yanked the door open. I told them everything I'd discovered, that I knew about Edward's problems, that I knew they were only looking for me for money, that they were sellouts who had chosen their stepfather because it was convenient economically, and now that it wasn't working, they wanted to come back to me. Jordan tried to deny it, but Melissa broke down and started admitting that, yes, things were bad, they were going to lose their jobs, but that didn't mean they didn't really want to have a relationship with me. I told them to leave, that if they wanted something from me, After 8 years of treating me like I was dead to them, the least they could do was be honest from the beginning. Jordan got angry, yelled at me that I was being selfish, that they were my family and I had an obligation to help them. That word, obligation, made me so angry. I told him that he lost any right to ask me for obligations when he decided that his mother, who destroyed me, deserved more loyalty than I did. They left furious, yelling things about how I was a terrible father, about how I was going to regret this. I didn't see them for several weeks after that and honestly felt relief. But it didn't end there. One day, they showed up at my training center with Melissa and the grandkids. All 3 kids, Jordan's 5-year-old, the 1-year-old baby, and Melissa's 6-month-old baby. They arrived right when I was teaching a group class and stayed in the reception area waiting for me to finish. My partners told me there were people waiting for me, and when I came out and saw them, my first instinct was to tell them to leave immediately. But there were clients around, parents bringing their kids, and I didn't want to make a scene. I told them to wait in my office. I finished my class, which lasted another 45 minutes, and left them waiting there the whole time. When I finally went into the office, Jordan was furious that I'd made him wait, and I told him he'd made me wait 8 years, so 45 minutes was nothing. Melissa put the kids in front, like using them as shields, saying, "Look at your grandkids, don't you want to meet them?" And yes, seeing them affected me. I'm not going to lie. The 5-year-old looked at me with curiosity and the babies were adorable, but I wasn't going to let them manipulate me emotionally. I asked them what they really wanted, no more games. Jordan finally was direct, said they needed me to invest in a business they wanted to start, a furniture store but more modern and focused on custom design. They wanted like $50,000 to start, $50,000. I asked them if they were crazy, if they really thought I was going to give them that money after everything. Jordan completely lost his temper, started yelling at me about how he always knew I was selfish, that Mom was right about me, that there was a reason she'd looked for love elsewhere. That hurt. I'm not going to deny it, but it also gave me clarity. I told them to leave and not come back, that if they wanted money to ask their mother and Edward for it. Melissa said they didn't have money, that's why they were coming to me. I told them that was their problem, not mine. I escorted them out, and Jordan was so angry that when we got to the parking lot, he knocked down one of our advertising signs. My partners came out to see what was happening, and I had to briefly explain who they were and ask them to just let them leave. Jordan yelled at me from his car that I was going to regret this, that I was rejecting my own family, that I was a bitter and lonely old man. When he might be right about bitter, but at least I have dignity. At least I didn't sell my principles for money and security. They left, and I stood there, feeling a mix of anger, sadness, and some satisfaction for having held my ground. My partners asked if I was okay. I told them the very summarized version of the story, and they both supported me, said I'd done the right thing. 2 days later, I received an email from both of them. It was long, like 3 pages, and this time they did admit everything. They said yes, that when Mom and Dad got divorced, they had chosen to be on Mom's side. Because Edward seemed to have money and stability, because he offered them good jobs, because they thought Dad was just a high school coach who would never give them the opportunities Edward could give them. They admitted it was a financial decision, not an emotional one, and that they'd regretted it several times over the years, but pride wouldn't let them reach out. I said that when they found out I had a successful business, they saw an opportunity not only to reconnect, but to secure their future again, that they thought we could be partners and family at the same time. The email ended asking for forgiveness and begging for one last chance, promising that this time it would be different, that they really wanted a genuine relationship with me regardless of money. I read that email probably 10 times. Part of me felt validation because they were finally admitting what I'd always suspected, that they'd traded me for economic convenience. Another part felt betrayed again, because even in this moment of supposed honesty, they were still asking for money, still mentioning the business and investment. I didn't respond immediately. I took 2 whole months to think about what I wanted to do. I talked to my partners, some close friends, even to my therapist I'd started seeing a few years back. Everyone told me the decision was mine, that no one could tell me what to do with this situation. Some thought I should give them a chance, that they were my kids after all. Others thought they were going to hurt me again, that they just wanted to use me. In the end, I decided I wanted to meet my grandkids. Not for Jordan and Melissa, but because those kids weren't guilty of any of this. And part of me wondered if missing them was something I was going to regret when I was even older. But I was going to do it on my terms. I sent them a short email saying I was willing to have a dinner with them and the kids, but making very clear that I wasn't going to invest in any business. That if they wanted to come, it was solely to try to rebuild a family relationship without financial expectations. Jordan responded almost immediately saying yes, that they understood, that they just wanted to spend time with me. Melissa also responded saying the same thing. We agreed to meet at a family restaurant the following week. The dinner was strange. The kids were the best part of everything. The 5-year-old, whose name is Tyler, was fascinated with baseball when I told him I'd been a coach, and we spent like half an hour talking about his favorite team while he ate chicken nuggets. The babies were adorable, though honestly at that age they just eat and cry and sleep. There's not much interaction. Jordan and Melissa were being extremely nice, almost too much, like they were acting. We talked about superficial things. Their lives, my business, the kids. Neither mentioned money or investment, which was good. When dinner ended and we were saying goodbye, Tyler hugged me and said, "Bye, Grandpa." And I'm not going to lie. That got to me. It had been 8 years since anyone in my family called me anything related to being part of it. It's been like 3 months since that dinner. We've had a few more meetings, always focused on the kids. Jordan and Melissa haven't asked for money directly again, though they've mentioned a couple times how difficult it is to find work after Edward finally sold the company. I don't bite the bait, just listen to them and change the subject. I don't trust them completely yet, probably never going to trust them the way I trusted before all this. But I'm building something with my grandkids, and that feels important. Tyler now comes to the training center some Saturdays, and I teach him baseball basics, and he's excited all the time, asks me questions constantly. When I see him interact with my partners and with the other kids at the center, I feel something I hadn't felt in years, like a connection with the future, with something bigger than my own pain. I don't know if Jordan and Melissa really want a genuine relationship with me, or if they're just waiting for the right moment to ask me for money again. Part of me is still angry, still hurt about the 8 years they took from me, about the weddings where I wasn't there, about not having seen my grandkids born. I can't just forgive and forget all that. But I also realize that holding on to resentment only hurts me, not them. So I'm taking small steps, building something new that's not what we had before, but that's something at least. Last week, Jordan asked me if I'd like to go to one of Tyler's baseball games in his local league. I said yes. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna cheer for my grandson, and I'm gonna see what happens. I don't have big expectations. I'm not expecting us to suddenly be a happy family again. But I'm also not going to close myself off completely to the possibility that something good could come out of all this mess. I guess that's enough for now.